Greetings everyone, I hope you're doing well. I'm Dark Ages Workshop from the Grimdark Compendium, and in today's episode I want to introduce you to surface finish variation, explain what it is, and how to achieve it. After we lay down the groundwork of the topic, and I reveal who this mysterious figure I'm working on is, we're gonna answer some of the most requested questions about varnishes and how they work with the Grimdark style. The answer to these questions are not so obvious and imply insights that go beyond the surface level. So, without further ado, let's dive into the explanation. On the matter of varnishes and how to use them, there are tons of videos and blogs about how to apply them on your models, what are the differences between brands, how to avoid frosting. That's all good and valuable information to know, regardless of your paint style. However, what I feel it's almost entirely missing is some discussion about the creative application of varnishes and their effects, which, in my opinion, is simply their strongest point. Well, there are lots of creative nuances to varnishing, such as using them to change the surface tension, making easy crevice washes, creating safe states, things like that. But what I mean with creative is something totally different. The general perception of varnishes seems to be that you choose only one, matte, satin or gloss, and when you're done painting, you spray a final even coat on the miniature. One effect, two at most, just at the very end. This may be fine for box art, more traditional paint styles, or gaming miniatures that will see constant handling. But it doesn't have to be like this, and there's a lot more beyond that. Especially in the Grimdark style, we can use varnishes in conjunction with other products and techniques to render special effects that are appropriate for the atmosphere and level of rendition and are worthy of the definition of Grimdark. So let's immediately jump to the core topic of this video, surface finish variation. When we look at every single possible mundane item around us, we notice that each material has the ability to reflect light in a somewhat different way. Depending on the structure, texture and composition, they can scatter light in different directions, absorb it, or don't scatter at all and be instead highly reflective. Look at this lawnmower. This green enamel has a certain reflective sheen, so much that it mirrors nearby objects. The plastic cover has this wrinkled texture and has just a little bit of white light's reflection. I'd say this is pretty much satin, with some added texture and weathering. Look at the crusted deposits that are reclaiming this metal. It retains the sheen under it, but transitions into opaque to powdery and chalky looking. The seat is more on the matte side, with some dirt spatterings, and rubber from tires and hoses have subtle satin reflectiveness with the inclusion of dirt, grime, and rust. We could probably discuss the different surface variations on this for an entire episode. It is so rich and varied that it's simply a perfect reference to understand what we're trying to achieve. Surface finish variation is a visual effect that consists in replicating the reflective conditions of real-world materials onto the surfaces of your models, in order to create realistic and lifelike renditions. Look at the graphics of modern video games, or practical effects like professional-made props from films. The more they put emphasis on surface finish variation, the more they look believable and add a visceral kind of sensation. We want to translate these concepts on our miniatures and have results that are fit for a truly grimdark horror vibe. It is an integral part of the Grimdark style, to actively seek out all sorts of texture and surface variations. Let's see how you can start developing a mindset to learn surface finish variation immediately and using varnishes and paints in a creative way. First of all, what is a varnish? It's an agent that protects the surface beneath and dries of a certain finish. But now change your perspective for a moment. Try to think of varnishes not just as a final protective coating, but as tools to achieve a desired effect or build your way towards it. Use them exactly like any other color or weathering product. In a dry brush, stippling motion, or base coat entire surfaces in deliberate and controlled passes. Varnishes represent the three basic states of surface finish: matte, satin, and gloss. Ideally, on the same miniature, we shouldn't be limited to choose only one of them. To convey a sensation of realism and a visceral Grimdark vibe, we want as many effects as possible. Clothing, cloaks, and vestments are generally all matte. Leather, rubber hoses, anything mildly organic should be at least satin. Metal, gems, trinkets, or different types of nasty organic surfaces would be glossy and reflective. Of course, as with all things, balance and moderate quantities will be the way to go. At some point, we start to realize that categorizing every organic and inorganic surface that we see in just 3 finishes is something that is simply unrealistic and too restricting. So what can we do to unlock new finishes that go beyond the basic 3? Change your perspective again and try to apply the same principle as before, but this time with paints. Look at every paint as a unique tool to render special effects, kinda like varnishes. They are vastly different things, but consider that all paints dry with their own distinct finish. Acrylics typically dry with a slightly satin finish, though some brands are known to dry very matte. Metallic paints naturally have a reflective sheen, with chrome paints offering an extreme mirror-like finish. Oils, on the other hand, are sturdy and durable colors, offer greater control over transparency and translucency, and tend to dry with a mild satin effect. Enamel washes are also durable colors that dry hard but matte, leaving behind a minuscule amount of grime agent, distinct from oils. Depending on the way you remove them, with mineral spirits or a dry Q-tip, you even receive 2 different finishes. Pigment powders provide chalky, dry effects that are typically ultra matte. Varnishes and paints can be used in conjunction in creative ways to generate all the missing transitions between the 3 basic states of surface finish. These will be crucial in achieving all the realistic results we're looking for. Subtle variations in texture, finish, and color, granular transitions. This can be achieved by properly layering paints over different types of paints, or paints over varnishes, or the other way around, and all the other possible combinations of these. And this is not taking in consideration the environmental effects. If you start to think about the ambience, the weather conditions, the dystopian, dark and twisted places that our characters are inhabiting, you can add even more personality, grittiness and realism to your models. Think again about matte, satin and gloss for a moment and slightly change the semantics and hear that they turn into dry, damp and drenched. This changes everything. It means that a cloak or vestment that would normally be matte when dry could have a few patches of satin to appear damp with mud or rain or bloodstains. Skin can appear sweaty or swollen. Shiny metals can be encrusted by rust and dust effects. The juxtaposition, and most importantly, the balance between all these special effects are the gateway to start achieving surface finish variation in the Grimdark style. All of this is explained in great detail in multiple courses on the Grimdark Compendium, the vast majority I'd say, but specifically I would recommend the Genestealer Cult series, which has multiple practical examples. But that is not all. Varnishes and paints are not the only ways in which you can create surface finish variation. There's a lot more that we can do to achieve an uncompromised vision for our Grimdark miniatures. This is the Exile of Vindicarum, one of our characters that will be featured in our new Cities of Sigmar course, currently in development for the Grimdark Compendium. With this character, I applied every single concept that I explained to you in this video and brought even more complex techniques to it. First of all, this character started with a story, a precise narrative and mood in mind. I added all the Grimdark tropes that I would find fitting for a character like this, exactly as explained to you in our previous video, the 5 tips for Grimdark modeling and painting. What I typically do is just base out the model with acrylics, then pass an enamel wash to bring everything down to a neutral and grimy matte condition. It's my starting point. And then I crawl my way back from darkness towards light and use materials, products and techniques that can further expand the range of finishes and realistic renditions. You may have noticed this character has a real fur pelt. Animal fur reacts to light in such a varied manner that it's nearly impossible to replicate with just paints, and also it gives us an interesting texture to look at. It's so diverse from the rest. I use superglue as a sort of varnish for extremely specific reasons, to create an impenetrable layer that also creates a texture and an extreme gloss finish. A word of warning though, this is an advanced technique. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll be making an absolute mess and ruin your model forever. So if you want to commit to learning this technique, I recommend you to watch the Tyranids course that we have on the Grimdark Compendium, where we explain all the do's and don'ts, as well as mandatory safety precautions. Another way to add surface finish variation is to come in and apply the soft pressing technique. I use a pointed tool to render scratches and markings, creating variations in texture and finish that are in scale with the miniature. This leather cloak is an example of all the concepts that I talk about in this video. It's all about knowing how to layer paints and varnishes properly to create the most realistic and lifelike rendition that I possibly can. The texture and reaction to light is unlike any painted on effects or simulated scratches via painting. These are real scratches with real wrinkles and crackled effects. The full detailed recipe, of course, will be included in the Cities of Sigmar tutorial when it comes out. And finally, what I like to do is force surface finish with just using pure varnishes, almost as if they were edge highlights, like gloss varnish on the eyes, on the candles to simulate molten wax, ultra matte varnish on the beard, and some of the clothing details. Some satin stippled on just a few areas to give some added interest, environmental effects and temperatures, but always maintaining a balance between finishes and in very limited and controlled quantities. The complete video for the Exile of Vindicarum will be a long and extensive guide to the whole kit bash and painting process, and that will be included in our Cities of Sigmar series. It's probably our biggest budget project ever, with some absolutely incredible collaborations. We have MS Terrain Lab on board with us that will make exclusive tutorials of a diorama for our Cities of Sigmar. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We can't wait for the full reveal and tell you the story of our Crusaders. That is still a little bit further down the road, so stay tuned as we will reveal more details and announce the release date when it's ready. All the footage you have seen in this video, soft pressing, glue technique, the practical applications of surface finish variation are included in most of our tutorials on the Grimdark Compendium, so I advise you to go check them out. But before I leave you, let's quickly address two of the most requested questions regarding varnishes. Do I need to varnish my miniature before applying an enamel wash? Well, taking it for granted that you watched the video and now you know how I use varnishes. Well, no, it is generally unnecessary. If the mineral spirits chip away your paint, it's one or both of these two reasons. Your acrylic layer wasn't fully dry, or it was not properly applied. You can varnish your models for protective purposes before the enamel pass, but it's not needed. It's an added step. If you rely entirely on contrast paints or speed paints as your base colors, well, that's another story, and in that case, yes, I recommend that you give a solid coat of polyurethane varnish. Lacquer-based varnish would be so much better for protection, but it dissolves with mineral spirits, so it's a no-go in this case. Should I varnish my model at the end of my Grimdark style paint job? It depends on what level of depth and rendition you want for your Grimdark miniature. I will just show you this for a second though. Would you really want to come in with a unifying varnish after all the time and effort spent in doing this? It would absolutely murder the miniature. I understand the concern of wanting a durable paint job or the need to have protection for gaming purposes. I too play games. Mordheim, Warhammer 40k 4th edition, and the skirmish games, and I can't wait for Trench Crusade. If you are heavy leaning into gaming, and you transport and manipulate miniatures all the time, I would recommend planning your painting process in a way that lets you have all the texturing, scratching, modeling, all that stuff as soon as possible, and then coming in with some lacquer varnish. No enamels, no mineral spirits after the lacquer varnishes. They will reactivate and dissolve. Yeah, the results won't be looking as lifelike and nuanced, but that's fine for gaming models, and they can still look very cool. However, I assure you that the models we paint at the Grimdark Compendium are handled quite frequently, and I even personally play with them. None of them has ever received any damage or unintentional scratches, even when gaming. Oils and enamels, when dry, are quite hard and durable paints. Well, anyway, this could be actually a good video to do. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to see my approach on a miniature that is optimized for gaming real hard, but maintaining the Grimdark style intact as much as possible. I hope this video helped demystify all the doubts and misconceptions about varnishes, that it puts you in a mindset to experiment and push your capabilities. The Grimdark Compendium is the home for those who want to think different, push the boundaries, and simply make miniatures that look unique with a true Grimdark look that you won't find anywhere else. So come take a visit to our website, take a look at our courses, and grab some villainy inks enamel washes while you're there. Thank you immensely for watching. We will catch you in the next